Hey everybody, this is Pooka and welcome to episode number 5 of Poké Center, your home for Pokemon TCG news, tournament results, and more. Now, first of all, I just want to apologize. Haven't had an episode in a couple weeks, but I've been a little sick and there really hasn't been too much to report on. So, I do apologize, but we'll get caught up here. So in this week's episode, I will be discussing the results from this weekend's regional championships, and also some new cards that are coming up, and some new cards that got released. So stay tuned, that's all coming up here next on Poké Center. Spring regional championships took place in North America over this weekend. Now these were very important events in terms of figuring out who would win invitations to the World Championships this year, because of course the winner of regional championships do receive 10 championship points, which is a very large amount when you're trying to decide who finishes in the top 40 for rankings. So this would be the last major tournament before US Nationals. So it was a really big deal, and everybody was just kind of wondering what was going to happen going into this last tournament. Now that we had 3 weeks of state championships, people had some time to figure out the format. We're going to see if we had any interesting rogue decks pop up and win any events. But it looks like after all the weeks that Zekrom Electric managed to dominate states, it managed to dominate regionals even more, because out of the 9 regionals that happened in the US, Canada, and Mexico combined, Zekrom Electric won 8 of them, and Durant happened to win 1, but 8 out of the 9 regional championships were won by Zekrom Electric, so clearly it is the most popular and dominant deck of this format to date. Now, that doesn't mean other decks didn't have good showings. There were plenty of Celebi, Mewtwo, Tornadus decks that had top 4 finishes, but none of them were able to win these tournaments, and this just kind of solidifies the fact that Zekrom Electric was kind of a standard for this format here for states and regionals, and it just kind of was the most popular, and it showed. You know, I've never really seen a deck dominate so many regionals like this since the Gardevoir Gallade era, where that was the 2008 season where it won pretty much everything. And I guess you could argue that SP was similar, but I think even those regionals, those formats had a little more diversity than this. So it's just shocking to see that 8 of the 9 regional winners were using Zekrom Electric. So that deck clearly has been the force to be reckoned with in this format, and we'll see if that changes as we head into Battle Roads in the spring and US Nationals and Nationals all around the world. So we will have a new set coming out soon, and that will impact things, and we will see what happens with that, because that is coming out soon. Speaking of the new set, PokeBeach.com has released some spoilers from the upcoming Dark Explorers expansion, which will feature cards like Darkrai EX and Zoroark, which we covered last episode on this show. But some new cards have been revealed, and now we know that all 6 EXs in the set have been revealed. They will be Entei, Raikou, Kyogre, Groudon, Darkrai, and then Tornadus, which I don't believe an image has been released for yet, but it has been confirmed to be in the set. So those are the 6 EXs we'll feature in this new set. I believe they will have full art versions as well, so some cool new cards to look out for. I know Darkrai, Tornadus, and Raikou have a lot of hype behind them already, so it'll be interesting to see how those cards manage to affect our format and how they will fit into some new decks. There's also some cool new trainers, Dark Patch and Dark Claw, that got released as well, which will really help out dark Pokemon which haven't had too much success in the recent history of the game, so maybe we'll see Dark Pokemon make a big comeback. Now, if you're wondering when you can get your hands on these cards, pre-releases will start April 28th and May 5th, so those 2 weekends you'll have a chance to attend pre-releases to get the cards before the set comes out, and then the set comes out officially on May 9th. So we are just a couple weeks away from getting a hold of cards like Darkrai, Zoroark, and this Dark Patch, and this should be an exciting new set. So I hope everybody is ready for that. We'll have a shake-up in the game once again, and it'll be interesting to see how these cards really impact how people go about building their decks, going into Battle Roads, and of course Nationals. So Dark Explorers coming to you soon in a few weeks. A couple weeks ago, we reported that there would be a Forces of Nature collection box featuring a full art Landorus and then an alternate art form for Tornadus and Thundurus. I mentioned it would be a great asset for players because these are all playable cards, been used in various successful tournament decks, and it's just interesting to note how relatively inexpensive this box is. I was actually surprised to take a look. You can find it for around $10 to $12 in the US, and you get these 3 playable cards plus 3 booster packs. So if you're a new player trying to get into the game, or just an experienced player who needs to get your hand on some more of these cards, this is a very great deal for anybody trying to build a deck with any Thundurus, Tornadus, or Landorus. Now the Landorus is of course exclusive full art. You cannot get a full art Landorus in any set. You can only get it through this box. So kind of neat that such an exclusive card would be such a good deal. So if you're looking to build maybe your Zekrom Electric deck or anything with Tornadus or Landorus, pick up one of these boxes in stores. You can find it pretty much anywhere, and it's a very good deal. And to pick up some booster packs in the process. So really cool box that they released. I really like that they did this, and hopefully it'll help some people get their hands on some really powerful cards for cheap. Alright, now it's time for some questions from viewers. Of course, if you have any questions, please send them to our email address for the show, which is ttcpokecenter@gmail.com. And every show I'll take some questions and answer them. So if you're wondering about anything or you have anything on your mind, just ask, and maybe your question will be selected to get answered on the show. So question number 1 comes from Connor Cockerham, who asks, have there ever been any notable decks or cards that maybe are in the format and then leave the format, or they just weren't really good and then later on somehow they become relevant again? And do they ever come back as good or better? So he's just wondering if there's any situations where cards from past sets would somehow come back later to become relevant again. And the answer is yes, for sure. This has happened quite a few times over the course of the history of Pokemon. The example that sticks out the most in my mind is Blastoise EX from the Fire Red Leaf Green set. When that card came out, people were pretty excited about it. We all thought it would be very good, and then we realized it wasn't as good as we thought, and it really didn't get any play. It wasn't very good. And then later on, cards were released that helped it out. There was Holin's Electrode and Magneton in cast form, which helped it out to power up pretty much any attacker in the format, and then Blastoise EX became probably one of the strongest cards in the entire format. So it was completely irrelevant for probably about a year, and then a new set got released that just gave it a new combo to help it out, and all of a sudden it became the most popular deck in the format. So one of the important things to do when a new set comes out is to take a look at old sets and see if anything works together with the new cards. I think the most recent example of this would be Smeargle from Undaunted or Call Legends. It was in both sets. It did not really see a lot of play over the past few months, and then Sky Arrow Bridge was released, which then gave Smeargle a free retreat cost, and it just worked very well because every turn you can send up Smeargle to use Portrait, try to copy a supporter card from your opponent's hand and then retreat for free, whereas before it had a 1 retreat cost and it wasn't really viable to use. Now that also goes for Celebi Prime, so it's just important when new cards come out to take a look, see if anything from the old sets can work, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I would say Celebi Prime and Smeargle did not see any play in the beginning parts of the season, and now here we are. They are in some of the most popular decks in the format, mainly the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck. So yes, always keep an eye out when new sets come out. And our next question is from Kaiwen Kwan. He says that the only deck he can afford to play is the solo Terrakion deck, which only plays 4 Terrakions, and Durant is very popular in his area. And he's wondering if the deck can actually beat Durant, and if so, how? First of all, yes, I do believe that Terrakion deck has a pretty solid matchup against Durant. Of course, Land Crush does 90 damage, which is just enough to knock out a Durant with an Eviolite. And then when you factor in cards like Plus Power and Lost Remover, you can get rid of those pesky special metal energy that would prevent you from knocking out the Durant in one hit. So there's that. The main thing to look out for is Crushing Hammer, discarding your energy. And if you really want to focus on beating Durant, I would not play any special energy like Rescue Energy, because Durant plays a lot of Lost Removers, and they can just remove them from play. And maybe I would add more cards that prevent yourself from decking out, like Super Rod, maybe N, and even Copycat to an extent can help out. Anything that can help you just put cards back in your deck are always going to be useful against Durant. So yes, you have a pretty good shot against Durant. Just all comes down to that Crushing Hammer, which for the most part that's all Durant comes down to. So our final question comes from Daniel Musgrave, who asked, will Mewtwo be good when Dark Explorers comes out? And the answer is yes. Of course, Mewtwo EX always going to be a good card. It's got a ton of hit points, and it has a very good attack that can be splashed into any deck because it only costs colorless energy. But we're not going to see it dominate as much as it has. There are plenty of new cards that keep it in check. The number one, of course, being Darkrai EX, which does resist Psychic. So we're going to have Darkrai to keep that in check, and the new Zoroark as well should fare pretty well against Mewtwo. So Mewtwo will not be the all-powerful force it was during states and regionals, but yes, it'll still be very good. So thank you guys for sending in those questions. Hope to get some more next week, and hope I answered them well. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of Poké Center. Thank you everybody for watching. Of course, if you have any questions, once again, send them into ttcpokecenter@gmail.com. And if you have anything you want to get answered, maybe I'll pick your question and answer it on the next episode. As always, please follow us on Twitter at TopCutPokemon, and then like us on Facebook, TopCutPokemon as well. If you have any other questions about the site in general, our email address is thetopcutpokemon@gmail.com. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Twitch TV stream, which is The Top Cut. We have streamed states and regionals live this year, and we hope to stream more events in the future. So if you subscribe to us on there, you can see when we go live and catch some live Pokemon TCG action. So I think that's going to wrap it up for now. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave it down in the comments as well. And thanks for watching. See you guys next time. And thank you for watching once again this episode of Poké Center.